death toll at initiation schools in Mpumalanga has now climbed to 29. Earlier, President Jacob Zuma expressed anger at the death, saying the youths are being culled. Mac Maharaj speaks for the president and joins me now on the line. Good evening, Mr. Maharaj, and thanks for joining us. Two more deaths, we understand today, the death toll now at 29. The young men are continuing to die out there. Do you believe it's time for an intervention?
Well, the president has expressed himself quite firmly today. He's saying that while we welcome the action taken by the police so far in opening murder dockets, we wish to urge them to ensure swift justice for the families and that those responsible for the deaths are brought to book without delay. He's also made the very important point that we'd like to reassure the public from government's point of view that government is committed to ensuring the young men's passage to manhood was safe and without death and harm to their future. So there are issues of cultural practices, safe ways to do circumcision and initiation, traditions, all these elements are present, but we cannot accept that young people should be cut in the prime of their lives through improper handling of the...
It is ironic, Mr. Maharaj, that on the same day that the president issued that statement, that these young men seemingly still have no protection. And as you mentioned, the president also calling today for swift justice for the killers. Are you satisfied, though, that that can be achieved when it seems like the police are taking their cue from the traditional leaders and not leading the investigations necessarily?
The president has indicated unequivocally that he would like to urge the police to do everything urgently. This is not a matter that needs to be handled without regard to the urgency of the question. So the expression is clear, the mandate is clear, and we hope that the police will act accordingly. And the fact that there are issues of tradition involved need to be taken into account, but the need for justice to the families of those deceased is also a paramount consideration.
It's true that the mandate is there, Mr. Maharaj, but the success of that mandate lies in its execution, and it seems, again, like the police are not leading the investigation, but taking their cue from the traditional leaders.
I am not going to get involved in making a judgment call on that. It is premature to make that judgment from government's point of view without hearing the police themselves. Your views is put simply on the increasing statistic over the last few days. The police have so far made an explanation in public, and the president is saying, please act urgently. And that appeal was made today.
Would you call, Mr. Maharaj, perhaps in these circumstances, which, as you say, the very delicate balance of tradition and law has to be found, that perhaps there should be an independent observer at these initiation ceremonies to ensure that the rights of these young men are protected?
Your suggestion may be one of the suggestions that will be considered, but it is not necessarily a silver bullet to solve this problem. I think the issue of traditions, customs is a serious issue. It has to be brought into alignment with our fundamental rights and our laws. How that is managed needs to be done also carefully, but the enforcement of the law needs to be done properly, urgently, because we cannot allow young people to lose their lives in the prime of their lives.
And finally, Mr. Maharaj, the Mpumalanga Health MEC also seems to be kowtowing to the dictates of tradition in the area rather than doing her job. She has taken some criticism for her stance of not wanting to visit these sites. Do you think that there will be disciplinary action, or will she be called to account for this behavior?
That is your conclusion. I think it is a premature conclusion. Let us see how this position unrolls. People are free to express their views, but I think we need to be sensitive to the issues that are involved in this matter. We should not be running quickly to make judgment. We should put facts before the table as much as possible. But making judgments from a single dimension is not an appropriate way to handle this matter.
Well, we have a soundbite from her on the record, Mr. Maharaj, where she says that, in her own words, that she is not allowed, that she cannot actually access those areas, that is pretty much off limits to her, is what she said. But we will leave it there, as you say. Perhaps more of these facts will become clearer in the days ahead. We appreciate your time as always. Mr. Maharaj speaks for the presidency.
News that moves. eNCA.com.